Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to another edition of KCPS Homeroom. I'm Chris Odom. Today we're going to discuss arguments and claims. We're also going to feature the awesome address written by Malala Yousafzai and the United Nations in July 2013. So let's look at this quote to start us off. And it says, "With guns, you can kill terrorists. With education, you can kill terrorism." So no mistake in knowing why I'm featuring this young person, because I know there are other young people out there who may or may not know about Malala, but certainly I would say find her an unbelievable inspiration. So today we're going to define argument and claim and learn how to identify a claim and probably the difference between just a claim and an opinion. We're also going to hear a bit of her address to the United Nations from July 2013 and list 3 forms of tech support. So you're going to want to have something to jot down some ideas with, or your computer, your phone, something so you can record your thinking. Okay, then to finalize it all, we're going to review the claim that you might hear. I've picked it out ahead of time to see if when you find it yourself, you think you've found the same passage I have. Okay, and I would encourage you, if you want to find this passage, it's available on the internet for absolutely free on a website called Common Lit. It's a good place to find lots of good things for classroom instruction and maybe to work on extra at home. Okay, so Malala Yousafzai, let me say that. I've been actually trying it my best over the last day or so. I still didn't do it so well. So let me say Malala Yousafzai is the youngest ever Nobel Prize laureate, and she is a Pakistani activist and author, so it'll be really exciting to read her work. Okay, so let's start off with a definition of what an argument is. And having worked in English classes all the way through college experience writers, I've even seen at college campuses where they revisit this word because it has many different connotations and definitely in different situations means different things. So when we're talking about using it in school, are we talking about an argument, the one that comes to mind where we're going to really go to Dukes and have a conflict and a bunch of loud screaming voices that might erupt in the corner of our ear that we weren't sure what was going on? Is that your first impression of this word? And is it, it kind of connecting with some of these images that when I look on Google I find as the first example of what argument really means? You can see some struggle going on here, and usually even some physical, very close proximity. So nobody's wearing a mask, and this was all pre-COVID. All right, but then you go to an academic argument. In an academic argument, you might see in the court of law, there might be some other situations here where there's a panel. This fellow on the left over here looks like he's wearing, I believe, the gear of a clerk or a judge. And I see military garb. So there's probably, in this case, like a sense of rules and protocol for structure that we follow when we form an argument and present our case, right? When you've heard those words before. So a lot of that has a lot to do with what we consider an academic argument. You won't hear people call it that. You'll just hear argument or argumentative writing. And what makes it a little different than just writing persuasively is that in an argument, you're also thinking the most about the other position of the opposing view, which is called a counterclaim, and trying to take that into consideration with the whole way you present your side. So that is really very interesting pursuit, and something that you would think probably happens a lot in the court of law, and some of our best thinkers then go into the field of law. Okay, so where would you see argument in real life? And not again that one that we're talking about that you might see not exactly at work, but it could happen, right? Instead, the kind of argument you might have in work where two people really just need to come to agreement, and there's reasons that they need to use to support their reasoning before we kind of decide how that could work for both parties, or how one side might actually have the goal that we both choose, right? If you're talking about something in a workplace situation, if you're talking about things at the store, if you're negotiating a price, you're thinking on your feet, right? And all of these have something to do with argument. If you're trying to put together a solution for why somebody might not agree with somebody else, conflict resolution, then you might be thinking in terms of kind of an academic argument. What are both sides of this situation? Empathy comes from that process. Argument is a hard thing to do if your emotions are kind of, ruling you and dominating even your behavior in the way that you might stay composed. You see a lot of lawyers, right, who are working on that, even though they might feel very strongly about the topic. And that is definitely part of the challenge in doing an academic argument. And then the ability to present well. It can do a lot for people down the road as they're learning these skills in their educational journeys. Okay, so one word you hear a lot, we're going to ask you to listen for, and I'm going to read this small passage for you, is I want you to listen and write down what you consider to be the author's claim. And if this is a definition that you want to put somewhere, it'd also be a great idea. So far we've talked about the claim, and then we've really just talked about the definition of an academic argument. Okay, here's a great example of a claim, and the difference between a claim and an opinion. An opinion might be like, Twinkies are awesome, but a claim might be, Twinkies taste better than other snacks because of their texture, their creamy filling, and their golden appearance. As it is morning, I wonder if you're now wanting a Twinkie. All right. How many opinions and claims might you hear in your day-to-day experience? And will you hear them feel like claims, or will you think they're just opinions? What makes these two so much different? Beside the length, does one seem to have quite a bit more reason and supporting evidence, and even kind of piece by piece what you're going to discuss as you, again, make your case in this argument that you're going to have? Okay, so we're going to try this. If you have a chance, jot this on your paper. Write a sentence or two, and we'll just take a quick second here to see if you could get that started, and then I'm going to read to you and ask you to kind of come back to this. See if you could put one of these sentence frames down on your paper so that we'll see if you come back, you'll start an argument. There's your three choices. Students should, Americans should, or my parents should. Your choice. Okay, here's our reading selection. I'm going to again feature this awesome passage from Malala Yousafzai and do my best. Your job is to answer this extremely important question. What is the author's claim in this passage? Today it is an honor for me to be speaking again after a long time. Being here with such honorable people is a great moment in my life. I don't know where to begin my speech. I don't know what people would be expecting me to say. But first of all, thank you to God, for whom we all are equal, and thank you to every person who has prayed for my fast recovery and a new life. I cannot believe how much people have shown me. I have received thousands of good wish cards and gifts from all over the world. Thank you to all of them. Thank you to the children whose innocent words encouraged me. Thank you to my elders whose prayers strengthened me. I would like to thank my nurses, doctors, and all the staff of the hospitals in Pakistan and the UK and the UAE movement who have helped me get better and recover my strength. I fully support Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General, and his Global Education First Initiative, and the work of the UN Special Envoy, Mr. Gordon Brown. I thank them both for the leadership they continue to give. They continue to inspire all of us to action. Dear brothers and sisters, do remember one thing. Malala Day is not my day. Today is the day of every woman, every boy, and every girl who have ever raised their voice for their rights. There are hundreds of human rights activists and social workers who are not only speaking for human rights, but who are struggling to achieve their goals of education, peace, and equality. Thousands of people have been killed by the terrorists, and millions have been injured. I am just one of them. So here I stand, one girl among many. I speak not for myself, but for all girls and boys. I raise up my voice, not so that I can shout, but so that those without a voice can be heard. Those who have fought for their rights, their right to live in peace, their right to be treated with dignity, their right to equality of opportunity, their right to be educated. Dear friends, on the 9th of October 2012, the Taliban shot me on the left side of my forehead. They shot my friends too. They thought that the bullets would silence us, but they failed. And then out of that silence came thousands of voices. The terrorists thought that they would change our aims and stop our ambitions, but nothing changed in my life except this. Weakness, fear, and hopelessness died. Strength, power, and courage was born. I am the same Malala. My ambitions are the same. My hopes are the same. My dreams are the same. Dear brothers and sisters, dear sisters and brothers, I am not against anyone. Neither am I here to speak in terms of personal revenge against the Taliban or any other terrorist group. I am here to speak up for the right of education of every child. I want education for the sons and the daughters of all the extremists, especially the Taliban. I do not even hate the Talib who shot me. Even if there is a gun in my hand and he stands in front of me, I would not shoot him. This is the compassion that I have learned from Muhammad, the prophet of mercy, Jesus Christ, and Lord Buddha. This is the legacy of change I have inherited from Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and Muhammad Ali Jinnah. This is the philosophy of nonviolence that I have learned from Gandhi Ji, Baka Khan, and Mother Teresa. This is the forgiveness that I have learned from my mother and father. This is what my soul is telling me. Be peaceful and love everyone. Dear sisters and brothers, we realize the importance of light when we see darkness. We realize the importance of our voice when we are silenced. In the same way, when we were in Swat, the north of Pakistan, we realized the importance of pens and books when we saw the guns. And then she goes on, and it's wonderful to read the rest, and I would encourage you to do so. But I would say, as we read an early part of a reading, we hear the claim up there in the front somewhere. So that's what we're really going to use this reading for, and we might even explore it more in future videos. So did you hear a claim? Did you hear a sentence that popped out that really told you the position of this author? I think you heard some background, and you heard where this claim might be coming from, and you heard, the emotion in her voice that really energized the claim. But let's see if you picked out the claim. This is what I heard to be the claim, and when I read it, I felt it. I am here to speak up for the right of education for every child. I want education for the sons and daughters of all the extremists, especially the Taliban. Right? So when we hear that, this is what she's going to present on for the rest of the article that we're reading, but essentially it's a speech. Right? And so from there, this is how she will develop the claim, with the evidence and the reasons that you might hear as we read more deeply and read on. Okay, so what I'm going to ask you to do is to find an example of this by, let's see if we could give you a copy just in magic. But did you hear at least two other ways that she made that claim seem full of evidence and support? We're going to look for those and maybe even come back to them as we discuss this article further. Okay, so what was effective about her argument? Can we really place why we were listening so well and why everybody might feel what she was feeling? And is there something magic about listening to what young people say about what we all maybe once knew and have learned, unfortunately, to think of in different ways? Malala gives us a sense that things like this are possible and that new thinking could really be a benefit to some people more than they may even realize. So again, I love this quote, and we're going to keep that up there. Maybe if I can sneak it in a couple more times. Let's see if you can find an editorial yourself. Go back and find this article. Like I said, it's on Common Lit, which means it's free out there. And find another example of an argument. Read for a little while, stop and jot, write down the claim, and then see if you can find exactly two forms of evidence if I were to collect this from you when we're turning it in. If you can explain the impact of that evidence, then we're even going to a next step where we really start looking about how argument works and why the supporting details we put in one are actually effective. Some of those words are up here on this wall, and we'll see if we can dig into those too. Ethos, pathos, and logos. Something that for sure we hear in a lot of Malala Yousafzai's work. Thanks a lot for joining us for KCPS Homeroom. This has been another wonderful ELA Tuesday. I hope you have a wonderful day.